All right, this video is for you if you've experienced or are experiencing extreme back pain. And I mean the worst pain you've ever experienced in your life. Most likely you have been hospitalized for this. And no doctor is able to tell you anything's wrong with you. I know this because this is what happened to me, and I've been through this process. And a couple things. One, I'm not a doctor, so you still want to seek a medical professional for this. But what you're going to find is if this happens to be what you're suffering from, doctors aren't aware of it. I have not. I finally ran into one individual who knew what I was dealing with, fortunately. But I visited multiple doctors. In fact, I have a new doctor now, and she's never even heard of what I've dealt with. So the keys are to this. One, unbelievable back pain. And this pain is, for the most part, it's hard to localize, meaning you can't exactly say, I mean, at one time you could say, okay, it's my lower back. Then there are other times where no, it hurts higher. It's really hard to define where the pain is coming from as far as, it's not like a torn muscle or something of that nature. It's extremely intense, and it feels like inside, like it's like way up in there. It's not on the skin level, like way up in there. Then the second part of this is what I do have, from my understanding, is pretty rare. I could not find really hardly anything on the internet related to this at all, even after I knew what it was. So make sure to first go through all the steps as far as checking all the boxes off for the things that your doctor would look for. And that, obviously, that's x-rays. I mean, I had MRIs. I've done basically every test you can imagine, and all of them came up negative. And so after you've gone through that process, if you are in that position, then maybe I can help you. The second part of this is not a sales video. I will reference some businesses that have helped me along the lines, some products that I utilize that if this is affecting you, that you could use to help yourself. It's really difficult. If you're dealing with this, it's by far the most difficult physical thing I've ever been through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain this in a few different steps. One, I'm going to explain what happened to me, and what I'm looking for is, or you're looking for, is a correlation between what is occurring in your life and what has happened to me. And if you see these consistencies, then the video, keep listening. And if not, no big deal. Jump to another video. I'm sorry I couldn't help. With that, next, after I'll go that, I'll go to diagnosis, and then the final thing I'm going to go into is treatment and how it can be treated. So the first step on this is what happened to me. Well, I was in the middle of a house remodel, and I was actually staying at some friend's house, and basically woke up. It was about, I don't know, I was getting out of the shower, so it was around 8 a.m. and got out of the shower and brushing my teeth, and the pain hit. And when I mean it hit, it hit. It knocked me to the ground. I've never experienced a pain like this. After a while, I managed to get down the stairs, and I fell like on the wood floor on the ground. My dog was licking me in the face. I couldn't even really tell him to stop. I mean, it was awful. And about an hour later, 45 minutes later, my buddy's fiance came home, and she had got back from the gym and saw me laying on the floor moaning. And obviously that started this whole process. Ended up going to the hospital. They gave me all kinds of tests. They did not find anything wrong. At first, they thought it was a kidney stone based on the level of pain I was experiencing. It was not a kidney stone. And at one point, they even gave me morphine. And morphine was not strong enough. I say if on a scale of 1 to 10, it took me from for sure a 10 to maybe an 8. So I was still in significant pain after the morphine. But eventually, at some point, they let you go. And there wasn't a resolution. And they just said, well, you're going to have to go see a specialist. And okay. So my parents took me home. Well, actually took me over to my friend's house because they're right down the street. I was thinking, well, if I'm better tomorrow, I can work on my house that's a mile away, that kind of thing. It was a couple weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks before I could even go see a doctor. And that's because the level of pain I was experiencing definitely couldn't get in a car. It was hard for me to even I was on the second floor to go up and down the stairs. And I'll tell you, the only way I was able to function, there was only two ways I could function on a regular, not regular, because that's not right, that I could function. And that was either one, I had some leftover opioids from a previous surgery, so I could take those, or I could drink. And the reason I have leftover ones is because, I don't want to be taking those. They are effective at mitigating the pain. I just personally don't want to get involved in that. And I was also thinking, hey, this isn't going to last very long, and that's the last thing I need to do. But I would drink, and and it would be a weekday, and I would be drinking a significant amount because it would mitigate some of that pain. I've done a lot of, I think I've read every website and blog related to this kind of stuff in the process because I was stuck laying in a bed. And it does appear that a lot of people that have what I had and what I suspect others have, it seems a lot of people get on opioids. And if that's the case for you, then hey, no judge zone here. I get it. I don't think people can understand the level of pain. First, let's try to get you out of pain, and then you can just deal with the opioid issue. But it's that intense, and I don't think people can understand. I would have never been able to comprehend it. So I dealt with this, finally started, and I'm going to say I was better slightly. I had to have my dad drive me to a doctor. I couldn't, there's no way I could have driven a car. I mean, it was that just absolute. And it was barely what I could do to walk. And I went in I saw multiple doctors and specialists, and no one gave me anything. They all wanted to do more tests and more, multiple MRIs. And, well, I don't know, your guy needs to check this. It was all over the place. And I did all this from people that are supposed to be, good doctors, respected on this. And I got nowhere, and it was extremely frustrating. So I skip ahead. This is probably 2 months in. I'm guessing, I'm ballparking. This occurred about 6-7 months ago now, maybe 8. Yeah, 6 or 7. And I was dealing with this level of pain, getting nowhere. And my buddy, actually one of my best friends, was the best man in his wedding, and he lives down the street. He was having a birthday party, a pool party. So, of course, I didn't go, and some friends were asking, well, where's Ryan at? I mean, he should be here. And he told them, well, he's laid up. He's been basically laid up on a bed or a couch for 2 months now, or whatever it had been. He's in pain, back pain, doesn't know what it is. Well, another one of our friends heard that, and he called me and said that he had been dealing with back pain since he was, I think, 19, and he's early 40s now. And he said, you got to go see my chiropractor. He said, this guy's amazing. I said, okay. I'll tell you, I always thought if it was serious pain, you had to go see an MD. I mean, if it was something serious, you'd need to go see an MD. But when you're dealing with what I was dealing with, it doesn't matter. I would have gone to anyone that could possibly have helped. And I went in to see him, and initially he gave me an adjustment, and it did help. I actually felt better, but about the next day, it was like the pain was back. And I went and saw him right away again. And he explained to me that the pain level I was experiencing isn't uncommon, that people after extreme accidents, car accidents, can be in this level of pain. But the amount of pain I'd been in for that period of time is extremely rare. And he said also extremely rare because I had not been in a major car accident or something of that nature. So he said that there was probably one of two things: either neurological disease, which if you look those up, they're tough. They're tough, and that was one option. Another option was he said that I was intaking some sort of foreign. I forget what his terminology was, but essentially intaking some sort of poison in some capacity, or I had ingested some sort of poison, and it was reacting with my neurological system. Okay, so we started the process of narrowing things down, and I think it might have been that visit, or maybe it was the one right after that. I'm not real sure. Excuse me. But he ended up starting to narrow down things. So, for example, I was having my house remodeled, and when you do that, there are a lot of things that happen. I had some foundation repair with this foam stuff that I remember breathing in and thinking, I got to get out of the house. This is awful. It's this toxin. So that was an option. I mean, we went through all these things, and then he got to something for me, and he said, do you know if you have any gluten issues? I said, yeah, I do. I do. My mom has gluten sensitivity, and I've noticed to some degree that I have gluten sensitivity. It hasn't been major, but I know it, and I'll shoot you straight, because it doesn't matter. It basically makes you poop more than another person. All right, that's what gluten basically does, sensitivity. With that said, certain people that have gluten sensitivity or celiac, those are celiac is the if you're not aware of this, is the diagnosed disease, and you can test for that. And gluten sensitivity is not diagnosable, at least now that I know of, but it reacts in the same way. So there's slight variations in that, but that's what it basically is. So I said, yeah, and he said, well, had you noticed anything different in the time period that this occurred as far as intake of gluten? And right then I realized he was onto something, because what I had done is I was staying with my friend who was staying at his house. I'm doing a remodel. Basically, it was working my job, working the remodel, and then he had a kegerator, and we were drinking keg beer, and we were drinking like heavy keg beer, which I never do. And we were doing that, every day. And it's heavy beer, heavy in gluten. I knew that. And he said, okay. He said, well, skip ahead. I'll just shorten it up a little bit. That's what it was. I went through upper GI testing, lower GI testing. I did all this. They did find some issues, but nothing direct. Like, for example, I'm not celiac. That doesn't mean I can't have gluten sensitivity. It shocked me, because all my life I've eaten whatever I want. I've drank beer. I mean, no issues whatsoever. And now he's telling me that out of nowhere, I cannot even, have any gluten unless my back can effectively go into a back spasm. It was shocking. But I started and by the way, he has seen this before. It's not very common for him, but he has seen it multiple times through his career. And basically what it means is you have to get off gluten. There's not a shot for it. There's not a treatment for it. You have to change your diet. So that's good and bad. Good because, hey, you gave me a solution. I mean, honestly, I needed something. The bad news is, well, one, you can't have any more gluten in your life, which is crazy. But then it does get a little worse, because he tells me this is not something that's going to fix fast. He said what has happened, as he explained it to me, is the nerves in the back and bottom of the back have reacted. It's basically been poisoned, neurotoxin, there we go, to the gluten. So the gluten's acting as a neurotoxin in me to my nerves, which causes an incredible level of pain throughout the back. And that's why it's also not an area you can pick. And keep in mind, I also went to physical therapy. I did all that stuff too. I skipped over that, but I did everything, and I would recommend doing all that first. But if you get to a point where you don't know what it is, then this is an option. Skipping ahead to kind of treatment and the follow-up. So as far as treatment, and this is the final area here, the treatment's pretty straightforward. Get off gluten. And I mean, get off gluten entirely, not a little bit, entirely. And it's extremely difficult to do. I say extremely difficult. It's difficult to do because gluten's in so many things that you have no idea about. And the bad news that I was getting to is when I say it's not fast, the nerves nerves do heal, so it's good. You will get out of pain if this is what's affecting you. However, they grow really, really slow. They grow back very slow because they've been fried, and so they're growing back like millimeter at a time. And it took probably 3 months for me to be 70% better, 60% better, something like that. Now keep in mind, it's not day by day. You don't feel better the next day, and you don't really feel better the next day. You can start to tell a difference from 1 week to the next, and it gradually does get better. So I'm not saying you're going to be in the same level of pain you're in now. Again, if this is what you're experiencing 3 months from now, it gets better, but it is very, very frustrating slow. And it's to a point, you know, I was to a point at one point, we were talking about beers. I would go to a store and I couldn't pick up a 6-pack of beer. I would have to, if I wanted beer, it happened to be up, I actually had to get that 6-pack. I'd have to wait for a guy to come by and say, hey, could you pick that up and put it on my cart? Because I could do it, but later on that pain, it wasn't immediate, but a little later on the pain would flare, and it was just intense. And in full disclosure, I'd actually bring those back to the house and I would take out 2 at a time and carry them in, set them in, and then I'd make 3 trips. And anything else I bought, like toothpaste, okay, I want that to be on the low level. I mean, it was like that. So get off gluten is what I'm getting at. If that's, again, if this seems, you're going to know. If you think this is fitting, you're going to know. There's just too many things that you'll see in common. And now, when you're in this process, there are a few things to know. Number one, and I've had one, you can relapse. I've had this happen, and it scared the hell out of me. This was, oh my gosh, I'm going to say 2 months ago. I was actually about to, I did a Mexico trip and a Costa Rica trip, and I think it was right after the Mexico trip. Yeah, it was. So come back from Mexico, and in fact, we were watching football. So I was watching a game, and we went out to BW3s, and they have potatoes, but they're potato wedges, and they're fried. Well, the fried has gluten. Didn't think about it. It didn't occur to me. The next day I woke up, the pain had hit me again when I was, I was tying my shoes. It hit me again for only about a second, but I mean, it was bam, it was that intense pain. I mean, I would rather literally get stabbed. It's that bad. And then it released. So it was almost like it just hit me real hard and then came back, but it still fried my back. I was just about to start working out again. And after that, this has been, I don't know, it's been about a month and a half now. And it pushed me back about 2 months, meaning just having those potato wedge, that was it. Because I'm probably another couple weeks from being able to start working out again. And it's not that the strength isn't there. It's that the nerves get so inflamed, they hurt so incredibly bad. So no gluten. Then now, as you're going through this, there's a couple places. Now, if you live in Houston, you're in luck. Natural Health Houston, Dr. Darren, he's Dr. Darren Mitchell. He's a chiropractor in Houston that runs. He's the guy I went to see too. Go see him. Just go see him. If you're in Northern California, in actually Napa Valley area, there is a doctor. I don't have her name handy, but she is the only doctor that I saw online that has significant, valuable resources. She's an MD. He's a chiropractor. She's an actual MD. If you're in that area, set up. She is taking patients. Go see her. Okay. If you aren't in those areas, it's going to obviously be a little more difficult. So I'm going to try to give you at least some tips on things that you can do to make this a little easiver. So the first thing you want to do is, if you have, well, I'm sure you have either an iPhone or, well, I've got mine off right now, and that was because of didn't want it to ring during the video. But the first thing is, it's called the gluten-free app. It's just gluten-free. There's a free version and a paid version. Get the paid version. It's $4 or something like that. And what it does is it allows you, and if this was on, I'd be able to show you. It allows you to scan a barcode for a product. So when you're in the grocery store and you see Heinz ketchup, you can just scan the barcode and it'll pop up whether it may contain gluten-free, or if it is gluten-free, or it may contain gluten-containing ingredients, or if it is gluten-free, that kind of thing. It works for about, I'd say, 80% of products. It's amazing. I use it all the time, everywhere. If you're buying anything, you start to learn what has gluten and what doesn't over time, but it's extremely helpful, especially if you're new to this. The second thing, there are other pills like this. This is the one I use. It's Digest. There are a number of these, but basically they're enzymes. They're supplements. You can get them off Amazon. I got these at the chiropractor, but you can get these kind of things off Amazon or any kind of natural health place near you. And what they do is they help digest gluten. And so if you're in a situation where you're like me, you want to be able to take those even whenever you're at a restaurant, for example. And this is another little thing that comes in. It helps to digest the gluten if you accidentally get some gluten in you. It doesn't cure it, but it will mitigate that. This is something so these are my keys, and this, if you see this little thing here, this is a little pill holder. And this is off Amazon. It was like $8. And you can see I have these allergy digest pills in there, and I carry it around with me all the time. And the reason for that is, so now I've just decided I take 2 of them every time I go to any kind of restaurant, even if they say they have gluten-free. Now you are going to find that I don't even go to any kind of mid-level restaurant anymore. I just don't risk it. I will go to high-end restaurants that specifically cater to gluten, have gluten-free menus, or you can ask the chef, hey, I'm looking for something gluten-free, or I need this gluten-free. And even then, even if you have a chef telling you that, I take the pills because there's no reason not to. If you end up getting some, the penalty is so high for it. So with that said, I hope I've helped someone on this. I've tried to be elaborative as I can. I'm literally sharing this because it was just so awful. I do have a couple things to ask of you. Number one, if this video has been helpful, make some comments in the video, whether it's questions or comments or anything. The reason is this will rank the video higher in YouTube, and I want to expose this to people so they can find it when I never could. So make some comments, like the video, follow me on YouTube. I'm not some big YouTube person or whatever, but those things will help rank this video. I haven't decided, depending on how many people are involved in this, I may actually set up like a blog, for a website blog kind of thing for people dealing with this issue. I haven't decided yet. It just depends on I don't know how many people this has affected, but if it turns out it's more than I think, I'll do that. So quite frankly, so we can all share information about how we're dealing with this and treating it in a positive way. I hope it helps. And regardless, I hope you get to feeling better soon.